Staking is a massive part of Solana. It's going to give rewards to both our stakers and our validators, and furthermore, it's going to give weight to the individual validators as well based on their stake. This is going to matter when voting for changes to the Solana network, but also when voting for consensus on the blockchain. However, staked SOL can only be activated and deactivated at the epoch boundaries. So if we have an epoch here and I'm a staker, I've staked 100 SOL on a validator and I want to gain that SOL back, I want to get access back to it, maybe I want to gain access to it here in the epoch. And recall an epoch these days is right around 2.5 days. So I might have to wait longer than a day. In fact, I might have to wait up to the full 2.5 days for that SOL to become freed and back in my wallet. But here's the problem. What if I want to stake this immediately on a different validator? Well, the problem with that is I have to make that decision once the new epoch begins, because that's the only time when I have access to it. And so even if I make that decision right at the beginning of the next epoch, it's going to be in an activating state until finally it gets staked at the end of that epoch. Meaning that even though it's earning interest here in this epoch on the left, and it will eventually earn interest in the epoch on the right, we are gaining no interest for this epoch here in the middle. Now, maybe that doesn't matter a whole lot in the grand scheme of things if I'm not moving my SOL around very often, but if I am moving around often, losing out on entire epochs worth of interest is a big deal. It's going to drastically reduce my APY, the gains that I'm expecting to achieve as a staker. Because of this, liquid staking has become a popular option to keep our assets more, well, liquid. And the idea here is that we're going to maintain a pool of SOL. So we've got several different pools out there, and they maintain a very large amount of unstaked SOL. And the idea here is that I can, as a staker, deposit my SOL into this pool, and they will then stake it on behalf of me and all of the other stakers. So this SOL eventually does get staked, and yet what's interesting about this is it decouples the concept of my SOL directly getting staked. For example, my SOL might be floating around here in this part of the pool, and even though I deposited, let's say, 100 SOL, that 100 SOL ends up maybe getting divided out and staked across many different validators, just depending on where that pool decides to stake it. The operators will decide that. And usually they're going to be looking at the APY of the different validators and trying to maximize the returns. Now keep in mind, as a staker, if I did things the conventional way, I would put my 100 SOL on a validator here, and maybe over the course of a year, I would expect that 100 SOL to gain, let's just say 7%, and be worth 107 SOL at the end of 12 months. Well, I want that same type of return out of a liquid staking option. I don't want to just turn around and get 100 back. Instead, I'm hoping to gain about that same return. And that's exactly what liquid staking aims to achieve. So what's the value in this then? Why am I doing liquid staking instead of normal staking? Well, for a simple reason. And that is that if I'm ready to initiate this withdrawal, I can just take whatever SOL I'm owed and I can pull it immediately from the unstaked pool. I don't have to go through unstaking all of this different SOL on the back end. So I pull out my 107 SOL, let's say, after 12 months, but I don't have to wait until the end of the epoch. If we're in the middle of an epoch, I can go right here and say, hey, I want my 107 SOL, and boom, it's in my wallet because I'm pulling from this unstaked pool. Meanwhile, on the back end, that liquid staking pool will go back and pull the 100 SOL or whatever it's up to at this point. It should be about 107 SOL, and they'll pull that back into the unstaked pool. And because they're running this as a service, they're going to take a very small percentage of the gains as sort of a transaction fee. So maybe instead of getting 107, I might get something like 106.5, something along those lines. So I lost a little bit of my gains, but what I gained, very importantly, is the ability to have access to my SOL at any time. Not just when I pull it out, but for that entire 12 months. If I ever needed access to that SOL, I had the ability to pull it out and have immediate access. By the way, if this content is helpful, please give it a like, share it, and stake some Sol on LakeStake. We're grateful for every last land port. So let's talk about some of the details on this transaction point in here. How exactly do I know what I'm owed from the pool? For example, the fact that I deposited 100 and I'm expecting some amount of return on the Sol that I staked with the pool. Well, this process is managed by liquid staking tokens. Now, when we're talking about tokens, these tokens are a currency that ride on top of an existing network. For example, when we're talking about the Solana network has its own type of currency. It's called Sol. It is considered a coin on the network. But because Solana supports smart contracts, we can build our own applications and currencies on top of it, and that's exactly what tokens are. We can create our own tokens, and this is what we're going to use to track this process of liquid staking. So what happens here is I deposit actual Sol into the liquid staking pool, and it's going to get staked on my behalf. Meanwhile, I almost get these coupons, we could think of them as being, that says, hey, when you're ready to redeem that Sol, you want it back in your account, then you'll give us these coupons back. And this is delivered in the form of a token that usually has some name associated with it that's tied to the pool, and then Sol after it. So some of the popular ones that are out there, for example, are B Sol and M Sol and Jito Sol. There's quite a few out there that are part of major liquid staking pools. And so this little letter in front of it tells us which pool it belongs to. The little M in M Sol stands for Marinade, for example, and it's a very large operating liquid staking pool that operates on the Solana network. And so generally speaking, let's just say that I'm going to deposit 100 Sol and I exchange that for 100, we'll just say X Sol at this point. At a very simple level, we can say there's a one-to-one relationship here, but then we have to ask a question, because we know that if I stake my Sol, it's going to be worth more over the course of time. That's exactly the relationship we talked about over here. But what about this X Sol? How is it going up in value in time? Well, am I going to have 107 X Sol one day? And the answer is no, I'm not. There's no inflation on any of these tokens. Instead, we're going to be focused on the value here. We need to understand there's got to be a value associated with these coupons so that eventually I can get my return on my investment in the same way that I would have if I had been using true staking. This is where LSTs become actually pretty fascinating, because where a Sol coin might be worth, let's say, X amount of US dollars, well, now all of a sudden, my X Sol that I'm using from X liquid staking pool, this is also going to be worth a certain amount. And if the value of Sol goes up, let's say 10%, well, then I'm expecting the value of X Sol to also go up 10%. Furthermore, I can actually take this X Sol and I can sell it, or I can trade it. These coupons are not only good for redeeming back to the original pool. I can actually sell or trade this, especially depending on the fluctuations of the market. I might decide that I want my rewards today, and I want those rewards in some form or another that involves selling or trading the actual token, as opposed to going back and getting the rewards from the liquid staking pool. So what we might see is that my, let's say, 100X Sol that I have, I trade it back into the pool, and as a result, I actually get 107 Sol back, which again is representative of that reward mechanism from staking that I'm used to seeing. And so I'm happy because I get my reward. I'm also happy because I can have access to my assets at any time. And that indeed is going to be the pros of using liquid staking. It's having access at any time, as well as the fact that I still get rewards. The downside of this is that there is a small fee involved. And also, technically speaking, the LST value can be not directly tied to the value of Sol, and so I have to keep an eye on which of these tokens are actually stable over the course of time so that I maintain my value and I'm not, in the end, giving up some of my rewards to participate in the liquid staking ecosystem. So like the video, subscribe to the channel, and always remember to stake at the lake.